Okay, so now we can start rigging the legs. So for the legs, I'm just going to create a circle down here that I'm going to use as a controller, which eventually I'll get to actually use that. Right now I'm just going to keep it simple, and I can modify this shape later if I need to. Okay. The important thing is when you're using a shape is to freeze the transforms and then delete the history on it. Okay. I don't want to ever move this from this spot, so I'm just going to keep it exactly there with all this stuff zeroed. And I'll call this left foot control. There we go. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give us a little bit more modeling just so that the back sides stick out a little bit. There we go. So that works like that. I'm also going to put the pivot back here. I like to have the pivot by the heel. That's basically where it's going to be pivoting around, so that makes sense. Okay, so now what we can do is we're going to create an IK handle tool. We're going to make sure this is IKRP because we need the IK or the pole vector constraint. We marquee the hip bone. We marquee the ankle bone. And now we have a working leg. Okay, now vertically that's as far as he can go. But if I were to go forward and vertically, we can go a little bit further. Okay, so he does have some limitations as to how far he can move. Now any movement I do, I'm going to make sure I undo, because just like the hand, I want to have a spot I can zero out, and this doesn't give me that. Okay, now here's where it's going to get a little tricky, is I'm going to go to my IK handle tool again, and these are going to be IKSC. Okay, it doesn't really matter because we're not going to use them for RP, but just to keep it simple. So I'm going to marquee the ankle again, and then I'm going to marquee the ball of the foot. I'm going to go back to the IK handle tool, marquee the ball of the foot, marquee the toes. So now if I look at my outliner, I have 3 IK handles. Okay, so I'm going to call this IK underscore left underscore hip to heel. That's what that one is. Then the next one, IK underscore left underscore heel to football. Grab the last one, IK underscore left underscore football to toe. Okay, so now I have these 3 things here. And what I'm going to do is I'm first going to group each one. So I'm going to group this one. And I'm just going to call it left hip to heel. I'm going to group that one. Left heel. Oops, I didn't mean heel, I meant ankle. Ankle to football. Just re-change this. There you go. And then I'll group that one, and we'll call this one left football to toe. Okay, so what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to put each one of these pivots in the spot that the IK handle is at. So I don't really need the geometry for this, so I'm just going to go to show and turn the polygons off. Just makes it easier. So for this left hip to ankle, the pivot should be here. So I hold down DV and move it there. For my left ankle to football, the pivot should be here. For my left football to toe, the pivot should be here. Okay, so nothing too crazy. Now what I want to do is I want to create a control where if I click on this and move it, you see that it only moves that, it doesn't move these guys. Okay, if I click on this one and move it, which we would never really do, it'll only move that. So I'm going to create a couple controls inside here. The way that we group these is going to be pivotal to how this works. Okay, So typically with the foot, we try not to move a whole lot of stuff. We want to move the heel, but everything else we want to be able to rotate. So the first thing I'm going to do is group all of these together. So I just hit Control G, and this is going to be my left foot group. Let's call it left foot group. Okay. Now its pivot is going to be here. Okay, but I'm not going to use this pivot really as this. But just to keep things clean, I'm going to put the pivot at the ankle, hold down D, and then scoot it down, just so it's underneath the foot where it would be. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this, and I'm just going to group two of these guys together. I'm going to group the left hip to ankle, and the ankle to football. I'm going to group those together, and this is going to be called the heel raise. Oops, left underscore heel raise. There we go. And this pivot is going to be here. Okay, and what this will give me the ability to do is to rotate this and raise his heel up while keeping the toes down. Okay, now this one, I don't need to group this one, but I'm going to move its pivot. Instead of it being here, I'm going to put this pivot back there. And this one will give me the ability to do like a toe tap kind of thing. Okay, now I have one more group that I need to create, which is take both of these again and group them. And this is going to be called left tiptoe. I'm going to put the pivot at the tip of the toe, and this will give me the ability to rotate at the tip of the toe should my character need to for whatever reason. Okay, so just so you can see this structure here, open those. This is my left ankle to football, IK handle. Its pivot is right here. The left hip to ankle one was grouped, and its pivot was there. The left football to toe one was grouped, and its pivot is here at the ball. The hip to ankle and the ankle to football were grouped, and that became the heel raise, and its pivot is here at the ball of the foot. And then we grouped all of those together to do the tiptoe, and then we grouped all of those together to create the football group. Okay, now just to show that again, I don't need to show it again, you can just rewind. But it's the same thing, okay? It'll be the same thing every single time you do this kind of foot setup. So that when you do the left or the right foot, it's going to be the same way. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to use this guy as my controller. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to control click my left foot group. Okay. This has some translates and scales in it, which I didn't get rid of again. So I'm going to freeze my transform, delete my history. There we go. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to control click my group, and I'm going to say constrain parent option box. And I'm going to go to maintain offset so that it maintains whatever offset they already have, and say add. Okay, so now if I click on this and I move it, it's going to move that foot around. Okay, and if I want to, I can reset these and get them back seated on the ground. Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to take, where'd my elbow control go? I had an elbow control. Controls. Oh, it's a part of geometry. Show polygons. There we go. So I'm going to take this guy and duplicate it. That's my elbow control. And I'm going to come down here to my joint and snap it, and then push it out. I'm going to hit Shift P to do any unparenting that I may need to do, just in case. Okay. And then I'm going to take this guy, Shift click this IK at the ankle, and say constrain pull vector. Oops. Before I do that, modify freeze transform. Let's delete or rename this left knee control. Okay, now we have this nice and clean. Now we shift click this and now we go to constrain pull vector. There we go. Okay, so now I can grab this and move this up. That works good. I can take this and redirect this if I need to. Everything seems to be working good. Yes. Perfect. Okay, and again, I can reset these to 0. I can grab this, reset it to 0. Perfect. These guys that are here on the knee, this is going to be the same setup that you had on the elbow. So I'm not going to go through that. Same setup as the elbow. Okay, and then we still have some stuff we have to do down here. One thing I'm going to do is take these IKs and hit Control-H to hide them. We don't need to see them now because all of our controls are right here. Okay, now we did set up those other pivots because right now we can't really, rotate this guy up onto the tip of his toe. We can do this and then lift it up, but we like to have one control for just doing that. Okay, so I'm going to create another object here, which is just going to be a NURB sphere. Okay, I'm going to put it on my robot controls layer. And one thing that I forgot when I was setting this stuff up last time is if I go to the attributes on this, I can do all my overrides here. So I can say shading no, and now it won't shade that thing. I could even pick the color from here, and then all my objects on this layer will have the same color. So then it'll be obvious where my controls are because they're all that same color. Now I could break this up into several different controls. I could have main controls and sub-level controls if I wanted to. So I'm going to take this thing and take its section spans down. There we go. So something like that. I'll shrink it down some. And I want to make sure I go in the attribute editor to my render stats and turn off all the stuff that's inside here. There we go. That way we're ensured that it won't render. And even if it did render, we could just click this off and then it won't render. Okay? Just for animation, that's all we're using these for. Okay, good. So now we can set this thing up. So I'm going to go to my outliner. And this is going to be left tiptoe. And that's all we need to put. I can put control, I guess. Left tiptoe control. Alright, and then I'm going to freeze the transforms. I'm going to delete the history. And I'm going to use this as a constraint to control the rotation of that guy that's inside here. Okay, so I'm going to go inside my groups, and here's left tiptoe. So I'm going to say left tip control, left toe, or left tiptoe group, constrain, orient. Okay, and what this is going to do is constrain the rotation of this left tiptoe to that guy. I don't need to maintain the offset because they're both the same, so I can just hit add, and we're good. So now if I click on this and rotate it, you see how it works perfectly. It's pivoting right at the tip of the toe. Perfect. Okay. You will notice too, and we'll get to this in a second, but if I move this up, that doesn't go with it. Okay, so I'm going to take this and shift click that and just parent it. And so now as I move this up, we're still good. I can take this and rotate it, and we're still good. Beautiful. Okay, so this guy is parented to that guy. And this guy should actually be on our robot controls also. Just add him in there. Alright, so that's part of it. Now I'm going to create some controls for those other pieces that we did. This one here, so we can do this, and then the heel raise, so we can do that. Okay, so I'm just going to go to our main foot control and go to modify add attributes. I'm going to do the underscore dealie, and then I'm going to do one called heel raise. Yes. Heel raise. For now, I'm just going to leave my minimum set to 0. And we'll do -10. We may want to have a little bit of rotation downward for whatever reason. If his foot's up high, we can have the toes curl, whatever. The maximum for 10, and then the default is 0. Add that. And then we'll say toe tap. -10, 10, and 0. Okay, so now we have our two controls here. Now we could do these the other way, which is going to the connection editor. There it is. A little blind. And do it that way, but we're not going to get the same kind of control that we need for this. Okay. And the main reason for that is if we open up our left foot group and we open up our football to toe, this thing is going to rotate up about 40 degrees and it's going to rotate down about 50 degrees. Okay, so if we have this control that's going to go from -10 to 10, the connection editor only gives us a 1-for-1 relationship, meaning when this guy moves 10, this one's going to move 10, and that doesn't work for us. Okay, now we could go into our attributes and modify it and change these values to -40 and +50, but that really doesn't help us out. Okay, because then we have to deal with these huge numbers, and it doesn't, like I say, help us out. It doesn't make it more efficient. So I'm going to go to I'm going to click on the heel raise, go to Edit, and I'm going to say Expressions. Okay, now this is the expression editor, and I'm going to open up, just so you can see this a little bit cleaner, I'm going to open up WordPad and type in a big font so you can see it. Okay, because in here, it's a tiny font, it's hard to read, especially on a recorded lecture. Well, you make this a little bit bigger. All right, so what I'm going to do is our attribute, or our object, is called left foot control dot heel raise. Okay, now this is our object. Okay, that's what I've called mine. If you called yours something different, then you have to type in what your name is called for your foot controller curve thing that you drew and added the attributes to. Okay, and I called mine heel raise, so that's what it's called. Now, if you don't know how you've typed yours, you can go to Edit, Channel Names, and do long. And it'll show you the correct syntax for this. This is lowercase first word, then uppercase raise. See whether the R is capitalized. And then this here, everything's lowercase except for the first letter of each additional word. I believe it's called camel casing. I don't know why it's called that, but that's what it is. All right, so that's my object. Now, my other one that I'm going to do, object 2, that I'm controlling, is going to be called, let me go to my outliner and get the exact name. And this is the heel raise we're doing, so we need to do the heel raise, just there. And this one's called left heel raise. And then I have to figure out which attribute I'm using. I'm connecting an attribute to an attribute, so I have to make sure that I know which one I'm connecting it to. So as I just do a test, I'm rotating this in the X direction. So I'm going to be using the rotate dot rotate X. There we go. So this guy here is going to control this guy here. So our expression we're going to type in is going to be left foot control dot heel raise equals left heel raise dot rotate X. And I'll shrink this down a tad just so it fits on one line. Doesn't matter if it does because we're going to copy and paste it. Okay, so this is what we're going to copy in there first. So I'm going to copy it, go back into Maya, and just paste it in here and say create. Okay, if I get this thing down here that says result expression 1, success. If it says error, not success. Okay, so now I can test it. So I'm going to click here. Oops, sorry. I typed it backwards. This is why expressions are so cool, because I can just flip-flop these. I just cut this, equals, paste, there we go. So my left heel raise rotate X object 2 is equal to that. So let me copy that. Let me go back to my expression. There we go. And edit. Okay, once you've created it, you just hit edit. And you can get to your expressions by going to select filter by expression name. and then just editing it, and then there it is. So now if I go to heel raise and I middle click and drag, I can see that it works there, and it's moving down there too. Okay, so that's as far up as it's going to go. I want this to go 40-ish up and 50 down, let's say. Or I'm sorry, we haven't figured out how far we want that one to go. We'll figure out how far we want it to go as we play with this. Okay, so what I can do is I can say, okay, well this guy here, if I just multiplied this by 4, then that means that when, let's see, our minimum was -10, our maximum was 10, so multiplying these by 4 equals -40 and +40. So we've broken the one-to-one relationship is what we're doing. By multiplying this by 4, it changes it. So now it's going to be 4 times. So now I can just copy this and paste it in here. So now you can see how far up this thing is going to go. So now if I grab this and I go to middle mouse button, drag back. Okay, negative's not doing a whole lot. I didn't expect it to, especially in just being standard sitting here. But the positive is looking great. Okay, now if I move this up like so, the negative might actually do a little bit more. There we go. See, that's what the negative's doing here. It just didn't have room to do that when it was up before. Let's reset those. Okay, so that looks pretty good for that one. Okay, so this is the expression we're going to use for that heel raise. Okay, now our second expression that we're going to write, our controller object, let's call it that, is still going to be left foot control, but the attribute is going to be called toe tap. And what it's going to control is going to be in here tiptoe, not tiptoe, no, not tiptoe, left heel raise, oh, right there, football to toe, there we go. I thought I had that expanded already. So it's going to be left football to toe, and if I look at the attribute, it's going to be rotate X. So this is going to be left football to toe, rotate X. Okay, so I'm just going to replace these. So this one is the only one I really have to replace. So this is going to be left underscore football to toe dot rotate X is going to be equal to left foot control dot, instead of heel raise this time, we're going to be doing toe tap. And for now, we know that we're going to need this to be at least multiplied by 4. So we'll copy it. We'll put a semicolon at the end of this line, and then paste a new line. Every line has to have a semicolon at the end of it if you have more. Okay, so I don't need one at the very last line, but I can add it there just for niceness. So now I hit edit. I go to my curve, I go to toe tap, I middle click and drag, and now this thing is going to move up and down. There we go. So that works. Okay, now we can, if we really wanted to, we could set this multiplied by 5 and give our animator some control to go further down, because right here we're intersecting a little bit, but it's not anything crazy. If we go up, we're intersecting a little bit too. Okay, so we could always limit this by just changing our attributes. We can just say edit attribute and put this to a negative, or a -9 if we wanted to. Hit close. And now this attribute will only go to 9. So that's as far up as that one's going to go. I could also do this here and put this one at 9. Enter, close. And that's as far as that one will go. Now the bad thing about doing that is this one's already set to 10. So our animator is going to expect that these things should be able to go to 10. So it'll confuse them if you leave it at 9. So anytime you have something like that, you really want to focus in on the expression stuff right here. Now this is no different than what we did with the multiply divide node. Okay, all we're doing here is we're multiplying, but we've written it out. It's an expression. The cool thing about doing this, I wish this didn't have margins. Let me shrink this down a touch. The cool thing about doing this is that we can like add numbers. So we can say times 4 plus 10. Okay. Now just to show you what that does, we'll put this times 5 plus 10 because that's what it was. Okay. So what this is going to do is even when we're at 0, we have a little bit of rotation here. And then as we start playing, we get a little bit more rotation this way. And then we don't get as much rotation that way. So if I were to click and drag here, and I went to that attribute, you can see here we're at -6 or at positive 60. If I go this way and click on it, we're at -40. So now we've changed our range from -40 to positive 60 while we've stayed within that 0 or -10 to positive 10 reach. Okay, so in this case we really don't want to do that. Okay, now we're coming into something else too, which is something that I just don't like. Here, positive 10 rotates us upward. Here, positive 10 rotates us downward. Okay, so I don't like that. I want both my positives to go the same way. So instead of this being, this is 5 in our expression because we changed it. Instead of this being positive 5, I just make it negative. Okay, and that'll switch that. There we go. So now I come in here and I hit edit, and now it works the way I want to. Positive 10 is going up, -10 is going down. Okay, now there's no curves to deal with. This is like a one-to-one relationship, or not a one-to-one, but a linear relationship that we have. Okay, so that works. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so now we can just test out our leg and see how our leg's looking. So this works here. I didn't do these, but you can do those. Just adding the clusters in. Okay, that works good. I can do the heel raise. I can do some toe tap. I can grab the ball here and rotate it. And I can take this guy and move him and fix how that's looking. And then I can also grab these and rotate everything or position everything back to 0 to get all this stuff back to where it's supposed to be. Okay. Now this guy here, he shouldn't move this thing away. So we're going to hide our translates. And we don't need any scaling here, so we can hide those. Okay. So now our animator knows just rotation. Even though they could go in here with the move tool and move it, we can't lock that because it's constrained with this thing. Okay. Actually, it's not. It's parented. So we could go in there. We could go to our channel control, go to the locked, go to our translates. Here's our scales. We can lock those. Just move it over. Translates. We can move those over. There we go. So now we can't move it, and it still moves with it. Okay. Now I could also rotate this thing. So I can move this up. Oops. Move this up, move it here, move it there, rotate it, whatever. That's fine. I want to have that kind of control. And then zip that back to 0. Okay, so that works. So that's going to be the same foot setup that you have here. You're going to pop onto the other foot as well. Okay. And then one thing I want to do is I like to take these controls here, and I like to parent them to the pelvis. Okay, so I'm just going to shift click the pelvis and hit P to parent it. Now it does give this some wonky controls, so I'm just going to hit undo, and I'm not going to parent it because it'll give it, like I said, some wonky controls. So that's why I like to use instead, I'm going to click on this, shift click that, and go to Constrain Parent option box, make sure Maintain Offsets on, and hit Add. That way I still have the ability to animate that. Just double check just to make sure I can animate it. I should be able to. Yes. Okay. Still animated. I got scared because it turned blue. But now I have everything zeroed out still. So if I grab the pelvis and move it, you can see how it's going to go with it. And you can see as we grab the pelvis and move it, our other controls are kind of kicking in as well. Okay. I could also grab this for the arm. Click the pelvis first, sorry. Shift click that arm one and constrain this as well. Now, if it turns out that we get issues with this, not a big deal. I can always delete this constraint and not worry about it. Okay. Sometimes you just get some funky results when you're dealing with these constraints where they just do funky stuff. All right, so there's the leg setup, not a big deal. Now, the next step you can do once you're done with both legs is you can create some sort of shape. I had a good shape, Maya crashed and it deleted, so instead of trying to remake it, I'm just going to throw in a NURB circle and just drop this here. Okay, and again, I'm just going to put this at the center of my character, which is about the pelvis, which is actually where he came in, so it's good. I'm going to freeze my transforms and close that. Eventually we'll do more to this thing, but I'm just going to call this master robot control. I'm going to delete my history on the object. And then what we can do is create different controls in here. I'm not going to go through all of these, but I'm going to show you the ones that we're going to be doing. Okay, so all of these things that are inside here, like the helmet, if I hit 6, like the helmet lights, these side lights here, if I just go to the hypershade and go to textures, and I can do this as a list right there. Okay, so all of these things here, arm me a light surface, arm me a light surface. I'm not sure why I have 2 of each one. Probably because I imported the legs. Edit, delete unused. There we go. So now we have arm me a light surface, chest me a light surface, face me a light surface, forearm, pelvis, shin, shoulder, side of head, spine, thigh. The exterior lights we've already done. The Mia light surfaces down here. Oh, that's the keypad glowing. And that's the ground floor doing that. Okay. So all of these ones here, the face, the side of the head, whatever, we're going to create controls for them. And you should start at the top and work your way down. So just like we did the lights on the interior and exterior, you're going to create one for the face, for the side of the head, for all of these. So I would call one face control. And same thing, well, 0 will be off, 10 will be on, and 0 will be the default. Okay? Actually, you call it face lights. 0. Face lights. And then we'll make another one, and we'll call this side of headlights. 0, 10, 0. And add, and go through all of these things here in the order from top to the bottom to add those in there. Okay? If you mess up, you can always go to Edit Attribute, and you can shift these things around. Or maybe you can't anymore. Nope, you can't. It used to be a Maya thing that you could move those around. Okay, so you can't move them around, so you're just screwed. Okay, so you're just going to use your controlling object on the bottom here to control the lights of the visor turning on, this thing turning on, this thing, these things, this thing, this thing, this thing here. The spine also has controls inside there too. The legs here, these here, they all have controls. Okay, so you're just going to put those on this guy. I had something else clicked apparently when I was creating mine. I don't know what I had clicked. Whatever, I'll figure it out. But whatever you had clicked, or whatever I had clicked, I would have these attributes here, and then I could create those controls. Okay, and then I would have something where I can control the lights of the robot kind of powering on. eventually when we do our animation for this, grab all of that. Door mechanics, environment, this. Okay. Eventually when we do our setup for this, we're going to have this thing. There we go. We're going to have this thing, the lights power up. The outside lights power up some. The keypad flips open. The buttons get pushed. The door mechanics do their thing. The door opens. The interior lights flash on. The upper lights flash on. And then his lights start flashing on. And then he kind of starts moving and doing all the controls that we've set up on him. And then he walks out of the room. And that's going to be the end of the animation. Okay? So we want to start setting up all those controls that we'll be using for that animation. Okay, so all the lights that are on him we want to set up. So now we only have a couple things left to do on him, which is the spine and some of these other controls like the neck and these things here. We have to control something for them. Okay, right now he has this kind of like shouldery shrug thing happening. Okay, so we'll have more stuff to set up after we're done, and then the rest of it's just going to be animating this guy. Okay, so that's how we would do the legs, and then that's also how we would do this master robot controller thing here.